A humble elderly woman, full of hope, leaves the countryside to live with her son in the big city. But as she walks through the gates of the mansion, she enters a nightmare of silent humiliations and veiled cruelty. Except a secret hidden behind the cameras is about to turn this story completely upside down. If this story caught your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. Let's continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. The bus moved slowly along Interstate 80, cutting through the landscape between the rural heartland and the concrete canyons of New York City. Helen sat by the window, a cardboard box on her lap and a cloth tote bag at her feet. Her calloused hands held a worn rosary, her fingers sliding over the beads with a familiarity born of decades. She gazed through the smudged glass, watching the green of the countryside transform into concrete, skyscrapers, overpasses, and relentless motion. New York City grew on the horizon like a giant of glass and asphalt, imposing and distant from the world she knew. It had been an almost 5-hour journey from the small farm in Pennsylvania, where she had spent the last 32 years of her life. 32 years raising her son alone, working the land, selling apple butter at the farmer's market, sewing quilts for extra money, tending to the chickens, the garden, the simple 3-room house where everything smelled of brewed coffee and lavender. 32 years since her husband had left, leaving her with a 6-year-old boy in her arms and a mortgage she couldn't pay. But she didn't give up. She never gave up. Gabriel grew up strong, smart, and determined. He went to the local school, then got a scholarship to the vocational high school in the next town over. He'd wake up at 5 in the morning to catch the bus, come back late at night, and study under the yellowish glow of a kerosene lamp. Helen sold everything she could to help. She sewed until her fingers ached, woke up before dawn to make cheese biscuits and cookies that he would take to sell to his classmates. When he got into the architecture program at Columbia University, she sold her 2 dairy cows to help with his move to the city. It was hard to see him go. The house became too quiet, too big, even though it was so small. But Helen was proud. Proud of the son who had conquered the world with his own 2 hands, who had graduated, opened his own firm, designed beautiful buildings, and become a respected name in his profession. He sent money every month, called on Sundays, and visited twice a year. And now, finally, after so much time, he had asked his mother to come live with him. "Mom, you can't stay out there all alone in the middle of nowhere anymore," he had said on his last visit, sitting on the porch, drinking coffee and eating cornbread. "I have more than enough room. Olivia wants you to come too. We'll take good care of you." Olivia, his fiancée. Helen had only met her 3 times. A beautiful girl, tall, blonde, always dressed in expensive clothes with perfect nails. She spoke little and smiled even less. The first time she barely looked at Helen. The second, she gave a quick, formal hug and stayed on her phone the whole time. The third, she complained about the heat, the mosquitoes, the lack of air. Conditioning. Gabriel would laugh, saying she was just too much of a city girl, that she'd get used to it. Helen said nothing. She just observed. But now here she was on the bus, going to live with them. Gabriel had insisted. He said he would renovate a room just for her, that she could plant whatever she wanted in the garden, that she would have the best of everything. Helen didn't want to be a bother, but her legs couldn't handle the heavy work anymore. The house needed repairs she couldn't afford, and the loneliness was a heavy weight. Maybe it was time to accept. Maybe it would be good to be near her son in her final years, to see him happy, to meet the grandchildren who would one day come. She clutched the cardboard box on her lap. Inside were her things, a few simple dresses, her heart and blood pressure medication, the rosary her mother had given her, the patchwork quilt she had sewn when Gabriel was born, a faded photo album, and 3 jars of apple butter she had made the day before, wrapped in wax paper. It wasn't much, but it was hers. It was her entire life in a cardboard box. The bus finally pulled into the Port Authority bus terminal. Noise, motion, people everywhere. Helen got off carefully, holding tightly to her box and bag. She scanned the crowd for her son, her heart tightening with anxiety. And then she saw him. Gabriel was there in the middle of the throng, tall, strong, with his arms open. She smiled. She walked toward him, and when they embraced, she felt that maybe everything would be all right. Maybe this new life would be good. "Mom, how are you?" Gabriel asked, taking her box and kissing her forehead. "Was the trip okay?" "It was fine, son, thank God." "Let's get to the car. Olivia's waiting outside. She couldn't find a spot in the garage. It was full." They walked through the terminal, past the turnstiles, and out onto the street. The car was there, a gleaming black SUV. Olivia was inside, wearing sunglasses, scrolling on her phone. When she saw Gabriel approaching, she got out, flashed a perfect smile, and walked over to Helen. "Helen, it's so good to have you here," she said, giving a quick hug that barely made contact. "I've got everything ready for you. You're going to love it." "Thank you, dear. God bless you." Olivia smiled again, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. She opened the back door of the car and gestured for Helen to get in. Gabriel put the box in the trunk, helped his mother settle in, and got into the driver's seat. Olivia returned to the front passenger seat, adjusted her sunglasses, and went back to her phone. The drive to the house was quiet. Gabriel tried to make conversation, talking about the traffic, the weather, the projects he was working on. Helen answered, in monosyllables, looking out the window, amazed by the sheer size of the city. Enormous buildings, wide avenues, people rushing everywhere. It was all so different. So far from the farm, the trees, the silence. After nearly an hour in traffic, they arrived. It was a wealthy, tree-lined suburb in Westchester County, with large houses and high walls. Gabriel parked in front of a modern mansion, all glass and exposed concrete, with an impeccable front lawn and an automatic gate that opened with the touch of a button. Helen's eyes widened. This was much more than she had ever imagined. "Mom, welcome to your new home," Gabriel said, smiling. They went inside. The interior was even more impressive. High ceilings, designer furniture, abstract paintings on the walls, gleaming porcelain floors. Everything was white, grey, black. Everything was clean, organized, cold. Helen felt small in there. She felt like she didn't belong. "I'll show you to your room," Gabriel said, picking up the box and heading up a spiral staircase. Helen followed him, holding the glass railing carefully. Olivia stayed downstairs, arms crossed, watching. The room was on the second floor, at the end of a long hallway. Gabriel opened the door and went in. It was a small windowless room with a twin bed, a built-in closet, a nightstand and a chair. The walls were white, bare, without a single decoration. There was a cold, white LED light fixture on the ceiling. It was clean, but lifeless, soulless. "I know it's simple, Mom, but it's just temporary. We'll fix it up, put in some curtains, pictures, whatever you want," Gabriel said, trying to cheer her up. Helen forced a smile. "It's fine, son. It's fine." Gabriel placed the box on the bed and gave her a hug. "If you need anything, just call me. I'll let you rest for a bit, then we'll have dinner together." He left and closed the door. Helen stood there in the middle of the room, looking around. She sat on the bed, opened the box, took out her patchwork quilt, and spread it over the mattress. At least now there was a piece of home in here. She took her rosary, knelt beside the bed, and prayed. She asked God to help her adjust, for everything to work out, for her not to be a burden to her son. When she finished praying, she heard voices downstairs. Gabriel and Olivia were talking, but the tone wasn't pleasant. She moved closer to the door, not wanting to eavesdrop, but unable to help it. "Gabriel, I told you this wasn't a good idea. Look at the size of her box. She's not going to fit in here. Olivia, she's my mother. She raised me by herself. I owe her everything." "I know, honey, but did you think about me? About our plans? We were supposed to go on that trip next month, remember? What happens now? We'll still go. She'll be fine here." "Alone?" "Olivia, she's not a child." There was a pause. Then Olivia's voice, lower, more controlled. "Fine, but there are going to have to be rules, Gabriel. I can't have the house messy, dirty, smelling like food all day. My clients come here. I work from home. I need order. My mother is the most organized person I know. We'll see." Helen moved away from the door, her chest tightening. She didn't want to be a problem. She didn't want to get in the way. Maybe she should have stayed on the farm. But she was here now. And she was going to try to make it work. That night they had dinner together. Gabriel had ordered sushi, something Helen had never tried before. She ate in silence, trying to understand the strange flavors, the cold rolls, the vinegared rice. Olivia talked about an event she was planning, about the friends who were coming over, about the decor. Gabriel listened, nodding, smiling. Helen just watched. After dinner, Gabriel helped his mother back up to her room. She went to bed early but couldn't sleep. The silence of the house was different from the silence of the country. It was a heavy, artificial silence, without the chirping of crickets, the wind in the trees, the sounds of life. She lay there staring at the ceiling, praying softly, asking for strength. The first few days were strange. Helen woke up early, as she always had, but she didn't know what to do. On the farm, she would already be feeding the chickens, watering the garden, making coffee. Here, everything was automatic. The coffee maker beeped on its own. There was no garden, there were no chickens. Gabriel left early for his office and came back late. Olivia stayed home but locked herself in her office, taking calls, working on her computer. Helen tried to help. She washed the breakfast dishes, swept the kitchen, organized things, but Olivia didn't like it. On the third day, she walked into the kitchen and saw Helen washing a pan. "Helen, you don't have to do that. We have someone who comes twice a week to clean. But I'm not doing anything all day, dear. Let me help." "It's not about helping. It's just that I like things done my way. You understand, right?" Helen understood. She understood she wasn't welcome in the kitchen. She went back to her room and sat there in the chair, not knowing what to do. She picked up her patchwork quilt, thought about sewing something, but she had no thread, no needle. She took her rosary and prayed again. It was all she could do. As the days went by, things got harder. Olivia started setting rules. Helen couldn't use the living room when guests were over. She couldn't touch anything in the kitchen. She couldn't watch TV in the living room because Olivia needed quiet to work. There were set times for using the bathroom, for going up and down the stairs, for everything. Gabriel didn't notice. He left early, came home late, and when he was home, Olivia was all smiles and kindness. "Helen is adjusting so well, honey. We're getting along great." And he believed it. He wanted to believe it. Helen tried to talk to her son, but he was always busy. A meeting, a construction site, a business trip, an engagement. And when they finally did sit down to talk, Olivia was always nearby, listening, controlling. One afternoon, Helen went downstairs for a glass of water and found Olivia in the living room with a group of friends. They were all young, elegant, laughing loudly, talking about trips, clothes, restaurants. When Helen appeared, a silence fell over the group. They all looked at her, with a look Helen knew well, the look of someone seeing a person who is out of place. "Helen, do you need something?" Olivia asked with a forced smile. "I just came to get some water, dear." "Oh, okay, but afterward, if you could stay in your room, I'd appreciate it. We're in the middle of an important meeting." Helen got her glass of water and went back to her room. She sat on the bed and cried. She cried softly so no one would hear. She cried for the farm she missed, for the loneliness of this place, for the feeling of being a nuisance. She, who had raised her son with so much love, so much sacrifice, was now locked in a windowless room, as if she was something to be ashamed of. That night Gabriel came home excited. He had won an architecture award. He was happy. He wanted to celebrate. He ordered expensive food, opened a bottle of wine, and called his mother to come down. Helen came down, trying to smile, trying to participate. But Olivia dominated the conversation, talking about how she had helped Gabriel in his career, how she had important connections, how she was essential to his success. Helen listened in silence, and in that moment, she understood. She understood that to Olivia she was just an obstacle, a weight from the past that threatened the image of perfection Olivia had built. The country woman, with her calloused hands and simple clothes, didn't fit into the sophisticated life Olivia wanted to display. After dinner, Helen went back upstairs. She knelt beside the bed, took her rosary, and prayed. She asked God to help her endure, to give her strength, for one day somehow for things to change, but things didn't change. They got worse. Olivia started controlling even the clothes Helen wore. She said her clothes were too old, too simple, that they would make a bad impression on guests. She bought new clothes, ridiculous, uncomfortable clothes that Helen hated, but she wore them because she didn't want to cause trouble. The jars of apple butter Helen had brought disappeared. When she asked, Olivia said she had thrown them out because they were expired. They weren't. Helen had made them the day before she left for the city. The rosary she kept on her nightstand vanished. She looked everywhere but couldn't find it. She asked Olivia, who said she hadn't seen it. Helen knew it was a lie. She knew Olivia had taken it, but she had no proof. She had nothing. Gabriel remained blind. He continued to think everything was fine, that his mother was happy, that Olivia was a wonderful daughter-in-law. And Helen didn't have the heart to tell him. She didn't want to hurt her son. She didn't want to be the reason for a fight between him and his fiancée. So she endured. She endured the contempt, the silences, the small daily humiliations. She endured because she was a mother, and a mother endures anything for her child. But deep in her heart, Helen knew this couldn't last forever. She knew that at some point something had to change, and she hoped, she prayed, that when it did, it would be for the better. Because she didn't deserve this. No one did. The weeks passed, and Helen's life inside that mansion settled into a routine of silences and unspoken rules. She woke up, early as always, but now without purpose. She would stay in her room until she heard Gabriel come downstairs, waiting for the right moment to appear and say good morning to her son. By the time she finally came down, he was already in his suit, briefcase in hand, drinking coffee while standing and looking at his phone. "Morning, Mom. Sleep well?" "I did, son. And you?" "Busy. I have a meeting at 8. Bye, Mom." And he would leave. Always in a hurry. Always distant. Olivia would be there, but it was as if Helen were invisible. She would go into the kitchen, grab her green smoothie, go up to her office and lock the door. She spent the entire day in there taking calls, planning events, curating the online life she so carefully constructed. Helen tried to find her place in that house. She would sit on the back porch where there was a small garden and just look at the plants. She thought about how nice it would be to care for them, to pull a weed here and there, to water, to fertilize. But she couldn't. Olivia had hired a gardener who came every week, and he didn't like interference. Once Helen tried to water a rose bush that looked dry, and the gardener complained to Olivia, saying she was getting in the way of his work. Olivia called Helen and, with a cold smile, asked her to respect the professionals who work in the house. The loneliness grew. Helen spent hours sitting in the chair in her room, staring at the white wall, praying mentally, because her rosary was gone and she didn't have the courage to ask for another. Gabriel was always traveling. He had projects in Philadelphia, in Chicago, in D.C. He would be gone for days, and when he returned, Olivia monopolized all his attention. Romantic dinners, outings, weekend trips. Helen would be left alone in the house, eating cold leftovers that Olivia left in the fridge with a note. "Helen, I heated up some food for you. It's in the fridge." But the food was never heated up. It was cold, sometimes hard, always tasteless. Helen ate because she had to, but every bite was a reminder of how far she had fallen. She, who cooked so well, who made the most delicious sweets in the region, who had fed her son with such care, now ate alone in the kitchen in secret, as if she were an intruder. One day Helen woke up with pain in her legs. It was an old pain, one that came and went, but on that day it was stronger. She tried to go down the stairs slowly, holding the railing tightly, but each step was a sacrifice. When she reached the kitchen, Olivia was there, drinking coffee and scrolling on her phone. "Helen, are you all right? You look pale." "My legs are hurting, dear. I think it's my arthritis." Olivia put on a concerned face, but it was a concern that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, that's a shame. Do you want some pain reliever?" "I've already taken some. I just need to rest a bit." "Then it's best you stay in your room today. I have guests coming this afternoon, some friends bringing over decoration samples for the wedding. I don't want you to bother yourself going up and down the stairs." Helen got the message. She went back up with difficulty and stayed in her room all day. She heard laughter from downstairs, lively conversations, music. She imagined Olivia's friends, all beautiful and elegant, talking about dresses, flowers, honeymoons. She imagined how strange it must be for them to know there was an old woman locked in a room upstairs, hidden away as if she were a source of shame. That night, Gabriel came home late. Helen waited for him to come up, calling out softly as he passed her door. He came into the room tired, but with a smile on his face. "Mum, sorry I didn't come by earlier. I had to sort some things out at the office." "It's okay, son. I just wanted to talk to you for a minute." "Of course, what's up?" Helen hesitated. She didn't know how to begin. She didn't want to sound like she was complaining, didn't want to cause problems, but she had to speak. "Gabriel, I know you're busy, but I'm feeling so lonely here. I have nothing to do all day. I can't help with anything. I can't go out. I can't even water the plants." Gabriel sat on the bed next to her, taking her hand in his. "Mom, I know it must be hard to adjust, but it's just a matter of time. Olivia is taking care of you, isn't she? She tells me everything is great. Gabriel, I don't want to be a burden. I just wanted to be able to help, to do something." "You're not a burden, Mom. You never have been. And Olivia doesn't think so either. She's very fond of you." Helen wanted to say more, to tell him about the rules, the windowless room, the cold food, the missing rosary. But she looked at her son, saw the exhaustion on his face, the worry, and she couldn't bring herself to do it. He already had so much on his mind. She didn't want to add another weight. "Okay, son, I'll adjust." Gabriel kissed her forehead. "That's the spirit, Mum. If you need anything, you tell me." But Helen knew she wouldn't. She knew Gabriel wouldn't understand, because to him, Olivia was perfect. And maybe she was. Maybe the problem was her, an old countrywoman who didn't know how to live in the big city. The days continued in the same way, but something changed after that conversation. Olivia became more demanding, more controlling. It was as if she sensed that Helen had tried to talk to Gabriel, and now she needed to tighten her grip. She started asking for things, small things at first. "Helen, could you wash these cups for me? The cleaning lady isn't coming today." Helen would wash them. "Helen, can you organize that shelf? It's a mess." Helen would organize it. "Helen, could you wipe the floor here? I spilled some coffee." Helen would wipe it. And slowly, what were favors became orders. Olivia no longer asked. She commanded. And Helen obeyed, because she didn't know what else to do, because she was afraid of causing trouble, of being kicked out, of losing her son, for good. One afternoon, Olivia was hosting an event at the house, a brunch for about 15 people, her clients, influential friends, important people. She had hired a team to set everything up, but at the last minute, they were short-staffed, and Olivia, flustered, went to Helen's room. "Helen, I need a huge favor." "What is it, dear?" "The woman who was supposed to serve the drinks didn't show up. Can you do it? You just have to walk around with the tray, offer Prosecco and juice. It's nothing complicated." Helen didn't want to. She didn't feel well. Her legs were hurting again, and she wasn't dressed appropriately. But Olivia insisted. She said it was important, that she couldn't disappoint her clients, that it would only be for an hour. Helen went downstairs, put on an apron Olivia gave her, and began to circulate among the guests with the tray. People took drinks without looking at her, without saying thank you. She was invisible, an object, a servant. And the worst part was that no one knew she was the mother of the man who owned the house. No one asked, no one cared. After an hour on her feet, Helen's legs began to tremble. She felt dizzy, her vision blurred for a second. She tried to lean on a table, but the tray slipped from her hand and crashed to the floor, shattering 3 crystal glasses. The noise made everyone stop and stare. Olivia came running, furious. But in front of her guests, she maintained her composure. "Oh, what a shame. Don't worry, Helen. Accidents happen. Go get some rest. I'll take care of this." But the look Olivia shot Helen had nothing of understanding in it. It was a look of rage, of contempt. Helen climbed the stairs with difficulty, went into her room and collapsed on the bed, sobbing. She felt ashamed, exhausted, pained. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to go back in time, to be on her farm, to have never agreed to come to this house. When the event was over and Gabriel got home, Olivia told him a different version of the story. She said Helen had insisted on helping, that she had told her it wasn't necessary, but that Helen wanted to feel useful, and that unfortunately a small accident had happened, but everything was fine. Gabriel went up to see his mother. She was lying down, her eyes closed. He sat on the bed, stroking her hair. "Mom, Olivia told me what happened. You didn't have to help." "I wanted to help, Gabriel. I feel useless here." "You're not useless. You just need to rest. You've done more than enough in your life. Now it's time for you to enjoy it." But how could she enjoy a prison? How could she rest when every day was a struggle to maintain her dignity? Helen said nothing. She just nodded, too tired to argue. Gabriel left and she was alone again. She looked at the white ceiling, at that lifeless, windowless room. And for the first time she wondered if it would have been better to have stayed on the farm, alone, but free. Because loneliness with freedom is better than company with oppression. The following days were tense. Olivia barely spoke to Helen, but when she did, it was always with a tone of disapproval, as if she were a child who had done something wrong. Gabriel was traveling again, this time to Chicago for a week, and Helen knew it was going to be difficult. She knew that without Gabriel there, Olivia wouldn't have to pretend. And she was right. On the second day of his trip, Olivia knocked on Helen's door early in the morning. "Helen, I need you to clean the kitchen today. The cleaning lady isn't coming, and I have meetings all day." "But Olivia, my legs are hurting so much. Can't it wait until tomorrow?" "No, it can't. I have guests tonight, and the kitchen needs to be spotless. You'll have to do it." Helen went downstairs, got the bucket, the mop, the cleaning supplies. She scrubbed the floor, wiped down the cabinets, washed the pile of dishes. It took her almost 3 hours, and when she was done, she was exhausted. Her legs were throbbing, her back ached. She went back up to her room and lay down. But that night, when Olivia went to inspect the kitchen, she found a corner that wasn't perfect. She stormed up to Helen's room and threw the door open without knocking. "I asked you to clean the entire kitchen. The entire kitchen, Helen, not half of it." "I cleaned everything, dear." "Then why is there grease on the edge of the stove?" Helen hadn't seen it. She had been so tired she hadn't noticed. "I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Didn't see it or didn't want to see it, because I'm starting to think you're just being lazy." Helen felt the tears start to fall. She couldn't hold them back. "Olivia, I'm not being lazy. I'm in pain. I'm tired. I did the best I could." Olivia crossed her arms, looking at her with disdain. "Look, Helen, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't want you to come live here. It was Gabriel's idea. But since you're here, you're going to have to follow the rules. This is my house, and I will not tolerate sloppiness." "I'm not sloppy." "Then prove it. Go down there and clean that stove properly." Helen went down again, cleaned the stove, and went back up. Olivia didn't even check. She just wanted to show who was in charge. She wanted to humiliate. She wanted to break her. That night, Helen couldn't sleep. She lay there thinking about how her life had been turned upside down. She, who had always been independent, who had always worked hard, was now reduced to an unpaid maid, without respect, without dignity. And the worst part was that she couldn't complain. Because who would believe her? Gabriel thought Olivia was an angel, and Olivia was too smart. She knew how to act, how to manipulate, how to keep up appearances. The days passed, and the situation only got worse. Olivia started controlling even what Helen ate. She said she was eating too much, that she needed to lose weight, that her medication would work better if she lost a few pounds. She started giving her small portions, food without salt, without flavor, without anything that could bring pleasure. Helen lost weight, grew weaker, more faded. One afternoon, Helen was sitting in the chair in her room when she heard a strange noise from downstairs. It sounded like voices, but muffled. She opened her door slowly and listened more closely. It was Olivia, on the phone with someone. "No, I can't take it anymore. She's driving me crazy. She just sits there staring, as if I'm obligated to take care of her. Gabriel doesn't notice a thing, of course. He thinks everything is wonderful." There was a pause, The person on the other end must have been talking. I know, but I can't just kick her. But Out. Gabriel would freak. So I have to put up with it, but not for much longer. After the wedding, we'll figure something out. She'll have to go somewhere. A nursing home, I don't know. Anything, just not here. Helen's heart went cold. A nursing home. Olivia wanted to get rid of her, and Gabriel didn't even know. Or maybe he did and didn't care. Maybe he was tired of her too. Maybe she really was a burden. She closed the door slowly, went back to bed, and lay on her side, hugging her pillow. She cried in silence, trying not to make a sound, because even to cry she had to ask permission in that house. The next day Gabriel returned from his trip. He was excited, happy. He had closed a big deal, won an important bid. He wanted to celebrate. He invited Olivia and his mother out to dinner at a fancy restaurant in Manhattan. Helen didn't want to go. She didn't feel well. She didn't have appropriate clothes. She didn't want to spoil her son's moment. But Gabriel insisted. They went. The restaurant was beautiful, expensive, full of elegant people. Helen felt out of place again, with her simple clothes, her shy demeanor. Gabriel and Olivia talked excitedly, planning their honeymoon, talking about the ceremony. Helen just listened, trying to smile, trying to look happy for her son. But then Olivia dropped a line that cut like a knife. Gabriel, honey, after we get married, we need to think about a better place for your mom, like an assisted living facility, you know, where she'll have professional care, activities, other people her age. I think it would be better for her. Gabriel stopped eating, looked at Olivia, then at his mother. A nursing home? Olivia, my mother is not going to a nursing home. It's not a nursing home, honey, it's assisted living, it's different. It's for seniors who need special attention. My mother doesn't need special attention. She's fine. Olivia let out a little laugh, as if she found it amusing. Fine? Gabriel, with all due respect, your mother is not fine. She's having a hard time adjusting. She's always alone, sad. Wouldn't it be better for her to be in a place with the right support? Helen felt the tears welling up again, but she held them back. She wasn't going to cry there, in front of everyone. Gabriel looked at her, saw the pain on her face. Olivia, we'll talk about this later. Not now. But the damage was done. Helen lost her appetite, couldn't eat another bite. She spent the rest of the dinner in silence, counting the minutes until she could go back to her room, to the only place where she could be herself, even if it was a prison without windows. When they got home, Gabriel walked her up to her room. Mom, don't pay any attention to what Olivia said. She's just worried about you. I know, son. You're not going anywhere. You're staying here with me. Helen wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust her son's words, but she knew Olivia was powerful. She knew she had a hold on Gabriel in a way that she, his mother, never would, because she was the past, and Olivia was the future. Gabriel left and Helen was alone again. She looked at the empty room, the simple bed, the absence of everything that had once been hers. And that night, for the first time, she prayed to God not for strength but for courage. Courage to endure, to resist, to survive until something changed. Because she couldn't give up. Not now. Not after everything. It was on a Tuesday that everything began to change. Gabriel was at his office reviewing blueprints when he got a call from his neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly woman who lived next door and always waved to his mother when she saw her at the window. Except she hadn't seen Helen in weeks. Gabriel, I'm sorry to bother you at work, but I'm worried about your mother. I haven't seen her in a long time. Is she okay? Gabriel frowned. She's fine, Mrs. Rodriguez, why do you ask? It's just that she used to be at the window sometimes. She'd wave to me, but it's been about 3 weeks since I've seen her, and yesterday I heard some shouting from your house. I thought it was strange. Gabriel felt a knot in his chest. Shouting. What kind of shouting, Mrs. Rodriguez? Oh, I'm not sure. It was muffled, but it sounded like an argument. I don't know if it was the TV or what. I just thought it was odd and decided to call. Gabriel thanked her, hung up, and sat there thinking. Shouting. His mother not being seen. He had been so busy the last few weeks that he had barely spoken to her properly. When he got home, she was already in her room. When he left in the morning, she hadn't come down yet, and Olivia always said everything was fine, that his mother was resting, adjusting, happy. But was she really? That afternoon, Gabriel left the office early. He wanted to talk to his mother to see how she really was. When he got home, Olivia was in the living room working on her laptop. "Hi, honey, what? A surprise. I thought you weren't coming home till late. Decided to leave early. Where's my mom?" "In her room, I think. She stays in there a lot. I was even thinking we should take her to a doctor, see if she's depressed." Gabriel went upstairs, knocked on his mother's door. No answer. He opened it slowly. Helen was lying on the bed, her back to the door. She seemed to be asleep. "Mom?" She stirred, turning her face. When she saw her son, she tried to smile, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Gabriel, it's good to see you." He came in, sat on the bed, and that's when he noticed. His mother was thinner, much thinner. Her face was gaunt, her eyes sunken, her skin pale. How had he not noticed before? "Mum, are you okay? Are you eating properly?" "I am, son. I just haven't had much of an appetite lately." "No appetite? You've always had a healthy appetite. What's going on?" Helen hesitated. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to scream. She wanted to say everything. But she was afraid. Afraid Gabriel wouldn't believe her, afraid of causing a fight, afraid of making everything worse. "Nothing, Gabriel, it's just age. You get old, you lose your appetite." Gabriel wasn't convinced. Something was wrong. He knew his mother. He knew when she was lying, when she was hiding something, and she was. He wanted to ask more, but Olivia called from downstairs. "Gabriel, honey, come here. I need to show you something." Gabriel looked at his mother, kissed her forehead. "We'll talk more later, okay?" He went downstairs, but the image of his mother stayed in his head. Thin, pale, sad, and Mrs. Rodriguez was right. Something was wrong in that house. That night, Gabriel couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about his mother, about the neighbor's call, about the strange way Olivia always changed the subject when he asked about Helen. And then he had an idea. He had installed security cameras in the house about a month ago, after a string of burglaries in the neighborhood. Discrete cameras in strategic spots connected to an app on his phone. He had never looked at the footage because he'd never had a reason. But now he did. He waited for Olivia to fall asleep. He took his phone, went into the bathroom and opened the app. The cameras had continuous recordings from the last 30 days. He chose a camera in the living room, with a view of the stairs and part of the kitchen. He started fast-forwarding through the footage, day by day. At first, nothing. Normal scenes. Olivia working, his mother coming down for water, going back up. But then, on the 10th day of recording, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Olivia was in the kitchen, his mother was washing dishes, and suddenly, Olivia started yelling. He couldn't hear the words clearly, but he could see the fury on her face. Helen lowered her head, her hands trembling. Olivia snatched a plate from her hand and threw it back into the sink. His mother flinched, terrified. Gabriel felt his throat tighten. He kept watching, and he saw more. He saw Olivia ordering his mother to clean the floor. He saw Olivia taking food from the fridge and giving his mother tiny, ridiculous portions. He saw Olivia locking his mother's bedroom door from the outside, trapping her. He saw his mother banging on the door, desperate, and Olivia walking past in the hallway, ignoring her. Tears started to fall. Gabriel couldn't believe it. How had he not seen? How had he been so blind? The woman he loved, the woman he was going to marry, was treating his mother like garbage. And he hadn't seen a thing. He kept watching. And each scene was worse than the last. He saw the day of the brunch, when his mother had to serve the guests even though she was sick. He saw her almost fall. He saw Olivia pull her aside and whisper something in her ear that made his mother shrink even more. He saw his mother climbing the stairs, holding on to the wall for support, and Olivia laughing downstairs with her friends as if nothing had happened. Gabriel turned off his phone, leaned against the bathroom wall, and took a deep breath. The rage he felt was so intense, he thought he might explode. But he had to control it, he had to think, he had to plan. Because he couldn't just confront Olivia. She would deny it, manipulate him, say he was misinterpreting things. He needed a plan. He went back to the bedroom, lay down next to Olivia, pretending everything was fine. But inside he was shattered. How had he let this happen? How had he failed so miserably the one person who had always been there for him? The next day, Gabriel pretended he was going on a business trip. He said he had an urgent project in Philadelphia, that he'd be gone for 3 days. Olivia was thrilled. More time alone with Helen. More time to do whatever she wanted. Gabriel left the house with his suitcase, got in the car, but he didn't go anywhere. He went to his office, locked the door, and spent the day watching the footage. All of it, every second, every humiliation, every act of disrespect. And that's when he saw the worst of it. It had happened the day before. Gabriel had left early, Olivia had woken up in a bad mood. Helen came down for breakfast, and Olivia started screaming at her over a cup that was out of place. The argument escalated, and Olivia, in a fit of rage, pushed Helen. His mother fell to the floor, hitting her head on the corner of the table. She lay there, dazed, confused. Olivia didn't even help her. She just ordered her to go to her room and stay there for the rest of the day. Gabriel turned off his phone and wept. He wept with rage, with shame, with pain. He had failed his mother. He had chosen the wrong person. He had been blind, deaf, an idiot. But now he was going to fix it. He was going to get justice, his way. For the next few days, Gabriel pretended he was in Philadelphia. He sent texts to Olivia, called occasionally, kept up the charade. But he was in New York, planning every detail of what he was going to do. Because there was going to be a confrontation. And it was going to be public. It was going to be devastating. Olivia was going to pay for everything. The wedding was 2 weeks away. Olivia had planned everything. It was going to be a large, lavish ceremony with over 200 guests. Business associates, friends, influencers, the press. It was going to be the event of the year, and Gabriel was going to use it. He hired an audio-visual team. He told them he wanted to prepare a surprise for his bride, a moving video that would play at the reception after the ceremony. The team agreed. Excited, Gabriel asked them to install a giant screen in the backyard of the house where the reception would be held, and to have everything ready for the big day. In the meantime, Gabriel went back home. He hugged his mother, apologizing in silence. She didn't understand, but she could see in her son's eyes that something had changed, that he knew. And for the first time in months, she felt a flicker of hope. The wedding day arrived. The house was transformed. Flowers everywhere, elegant tables, waiters circulating, a live band. Olivia was radiant, beautiful, perfect. She thought it was the happiest day of her life. And Gabriel let her believe it. The ceremony was beautiful. Olivia cried, Gabriel did too, but his tears weren't of happiness. They were of sorrow for everything that had happened, for everything that was about to happen. When the officiant said, "You may now kiss the bride," Gabriel gave a quick, formal kiss. Olivia didn't even notice. The party began. Guests arrived, offered congratulations, took photos. Helen was in a corner, alone, wearing a simple dress Olivia had picked out for her. No one spoke to her. No one knew who she was. Gabriel had asked his mother to be there. He said it was important, and she trusted him. After an hour, Gabriel asked for everyone's attention. He stepped onto the small stage they had set up in the yard and took the microphone. Everyone, thank you for being here today. This is a very special day for me and Olivia, and I wanted to prepare a little surprise for her. I put together a video that tells a bit of our story. I hope you enjoy it. Olivia smiled, touched. She thought it would be a romantic video full of declarations of love. The guests gathered around the screen. The music stopped, and the video began. At first it was normal scenes. Gabriel and Olivia on trips, at dinners, on outings. Everyone smiled, thinking it was lovely. But then the images changed. It was the footage from the security cameras, and what appeared on the screen made the entire yard fall silent. Olivia screaming at Helen. Olivia pushing the elderly woman. Olivia locking her in her room. Olivia giving her cold, insufficient food. Olivia humiliating, disrespecting, mistreating her. Scene after scene, day after day, weeks of cruelty summarized in a 5-minute, Video. People began to murmur. Some gasped in horror. Others started to cry. Olivia turned white, frozen. She tried to turn off the screen, but Gabriel had the remote. The video continued, and at the end, a sentence appeared. "This is the woman I was going to marry. This is the truth she was hiding. My mother didn't deserve this, nobody does." When the video ended, the silence was deafening. Everyone looked at Olivia with revulsion, with disgust. She tried to speak, to explain herself, but there was no explanation. The images spoke for themselves. Gabriel stepped down from the stage, went to his mother and took her by the hand. "Mom, forgive me for not seeing it sooner. Forgive me for letting you suffer. But it's over. It's all over." Helen cried. She hugged her son, feeling a relief so immense she thought she might faint. It was the end of the nightmare, finally. Olivia tried to approach them, but one of the guests, an influential woman from New York society, stood up and shouted, "You're a monster! How could you do that to an elderly woman?" Others joined in. They started shouting too. Olivia, desperate, tried to run, but she was surrounded by hateful glares, by words of condemnation. Someone called the police. And in the meantime, Gabriel took his mother inside the house, away from the circus, from the spectacle. He sat with her in the living room, holding her hand. "Mom, you're not going to suffer anymore, I promise. We're going to leave this place. We're going to start over, the right way." Helen looked at her son, saw the determination in his eyes, and finally, after so long, she could breathe. She could feel that she had a future, that she wasn't alone, that her son, the boy she had raised with so much love, had come back to her. Outside, the wedding had turned into a scandal. People were taking pictures, recording videos, sharing on social media. The story spread like wildfire. Within hours, it was in every newspaper, on every website. Olivia, the perfect bride, the successful influencer, had been unmasked as a cruel and abusive person. Gabriel gave no interviews. He refused to speak to the press. He locked up the house and stayed with his mother, taking care of her. Days later, he contacted a lawyer and filed for an annulment. The process was quick. Olivia didn't even contest it. She was too busy trying to salvage what was left of her reputation, but there was nothing to salvage. She had lost everything: friends, contracts, prestige. No one wanted to be associated with her, and Gabriel felt no pity. He felt that justice had been served, not in the conventional way, but in the way it needed to be: public, humiliating, final. The days following the scandal were strange, but in a good way. Helen would wake up in the morning and it would take her a few seconds to remember that she was free. Free from the rules, the contemptuous looks, the constant fear. Gabriel had turned the mansion into a sanctuary. He locked the gates, turned off the cameras, and asked that no one disturb them. It was time to take care of his mother. It was time to fix what had been broken. He hired a doctor, a kind woman named Dr. Evans, who came to the house to give Helen a full checkup. The results were alarming: malnutrition, anemia, uncontrolled blood pressure, signs of chronic stress and deficiencies in essential vitamins. The doctor looked at Gabriel with severity but also with compassion. "Mr. Miller, your mother has been through a very difficult ordeal. Her body is weak, but her mind is even more so. She's going to need psychological counseling, proper nutrition, affection, and most importantly, time. Time to recover from all of this. It won't be quick, but with dedication and love, she'll get there." Gabriel nodded, feeling the weight of guilt crush his chest again. "I'll do whatever it takes, doctor. Everything. No matter how long it takes." And he did. In the following days, Gabriel completely stepped away from his firm. He handed over responsibility for his projects to his partners, cancelled meetings, and postponed site visits. Nothing was more important than his mother. He cooked her meals himself, strictly following the guidance of the nutritionist the doctor had recommended. Light but nutritious foods made with care. Homemade soups, fresh vegetables, fruits, natural juices. And at every meal, he sat beside her, talking, telling stories, making her laugh. At first, Helen was wary. She thought it was temporary, that soon Gabriel would return to his busy routine and she would be alone again. But the days passed, and he was still there. Present, attentive, patient, And slowly she began to allow herself to believe that her son had returned, that she wasn't alone, that maybe, finally, everything was going to be okay. Gabriel also hired a trauma-informed psychologist, Dr. Chen, who began weekly sessions with Helen. Initially, his mother was reluctant. She said she didn't need therapy, that she was fine, that she just needed to rest. But Gabriel gently insisted, explaining that there was no shame in asking for help, that even he was seeing a therapist to deal with his guilt and regret. The first session was difficult. Helen sat in the living room armchair, her hands folded in her lap, staring at the floor. Dr. Chen was a woman in her 50s, with graying hair and a warm smile. She didn't push. She just talked about simple things, about the farm, about recipes, about good memories, and little by little Helen began to open up. "Doctor, I know what happened was bad, but I'm fine. I've been through worse in my life." "Helen, you don't have to minimize what you've experienced. What happened to you was abuse. Psychological, emotional, and at times physical abuse, and that leaves scars. Scars that need to be tended to." The tears came. For the first time since it had all ended, Helen allowed herself to cry without hiding. She cried for the fear she had felt, for the humiliation, for the loneliness, and Dr. Chen simply held her hand, letting her release everything she had held inside. The sessions continued, and each week, Helen felt a little lighter. She began to understand that it hadn't been her fault, that she hadn't done anything wrong, that Olivia's cruelty came from a place of insecurity and vanity, not from anything Helen had provoked. And this understanding brought her peace, a peace she didn't know was possible. One morning, Gabriel entered his mother's room with a cup of coffee and a warm cheese biscuit. Helen was sitting up in bed, looking out the window that Gabriel had installed in the wall. Now she could see the garden, the sky, the rising sun. Now she had light. "Mom, I brought you breakfast." She smiled. A genuine smile, one Gabriel hadn't seen in months. "Thank you, son. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something." Helen took a sip of coffee, feeling the warmth spread through her, the familiar taste comforting her. "What is it, Gabriel?" He sat on the edge of the bed, taking her hand in his. "I've been thinking a lot these past few days, and I've realized that we don't belong in this city. We don't belong in this house. We belong back there in the country, on the land, in the place where you raised me, where we were happy, where it all began." Helen's eyes widened. "Are you talking about the farm?" "I am, Mom. I want us to go back. I want to rebuild the house, make it the way you always wanted, the way you always deserved, comfortable but keeping its soul, its roots. I want us to live there, together, the right way." Tears began to stream down Helen's face. They were tears of relief, of happiness, of hope. "But what about your work, Gabriel, your life here, everything you've built?" "I can do my work from anywhere. That's what technology is for. And my life, Mom, my real life is with you. It always has been. I just forgot. I got lost in all the noise, the luxury, all the things that don't matter in the end. But now I've found my way back. And that way leads through the farm, through the land, through our roots." Helen hugged her son, crying on his shoulder, and in that embrace, all the hurt, all the pain began to dissolve. Because the love between a mother and son is stronger than anything. It can heal wounds, rebuild bridges, and start new lives. In the following weeks, Gabriel put the mansion up for sale. He wanted nothing more to do with that house, with those bad memories, with that symbol of a life that had proven to be empty. He wanted a fresh start. While waiting for the sale, he began renovating the farmhouse remotely, hiring a trusted local crew, people he had known since childhood. He oversaw every detail by video call, ensuring everything would be perfect for their return. He asked his mother to be part of the decisions. He showed her the blueprints, the finishing options, the color palettes. Helen, who had never had the privilege of choosing how she wanted her home to be, was moved by every choice. She picked tiles with flowers for the kitchen, a wide porch with a view of the sunset, a large bright bedroom with a huge window overlooking the garden, and Gabriel made it all happen, fulfilling her every wish with love and dedication. Slowly, Helen regained her strength. The color returned to her cheeks, the smile to her lips, the sparkle to her eyes. She started cooking again, making the sweets she had always made, filling the house with the scent of caramelized sugar, vanilla, and cinnamon. Gabriel ate everything with gusto, praising every spoonful, asking for more, saying it was the best dessert he had ever had. And she felt useful again. She felt alive. She felt valued. One day, as Helen was stirring a pot of caramel sauce on the stove, humming an old song her mother used to sing, Gabriel walked into the kitchen with a box in his hands. He had a serious expression, but his eyes were shining. "Mum, I found this in the storage room. I think it's yours." Helen stopped stirring, wiped her hands on the embroidered apron Gabriel had given her, and took the box. She opened it slowly, carefully, as if afraid of what she might find. And inside was her rosary. Her grandmother's rosary, the one that had disappeared, the one she prayed with every day before Olivia stole it. The tears fell again, but they were happy tears. She picked up the rosary, ran her fingers over the worn beads, felt the familiarity, the comfort, the connection to all the prayers she had offered throughout her life. "Where did you find it, son?" "It was hidden in a closet in Olivia's old room. She must have put it there and forgotten. Or maybe she did it on purpose but didn't have the heart to throw it away. I don't know. But what's important is that it's back with you now." Helen pressed the rosary to her chest, closed her eyes, and said a silent prayer. A prayer of gratitude. Gratitude for having survived, for having her son back, for having a new chance at life. "Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you for everything, for saving me, for giving me back to myself." He hugged his mother, feeling her gratitude, the peace that had finally returned. And he knew he had made the right choice. He knew he was on the right path, that everything, no matter how painful, had been worth it because it had brought them here, to this moment of healing, of rebuilding, of renewed love. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Olivia was facing the consequences of her actions. The story had gone viral in a way she could never have imagined. It was everywhere. National and international news sites, social media, television shows, podcasts. Everyone was talking about the bride who mistreated her elderly mother-in-law. And Olivia had become a symbol of cruelty, of hypocrisy, of superficiality, of the very worst of the relentless pursuit of status and appearances. She lost all her contracts. The brands that sponsored her immediately cancelled everything, terrified of being associated with her image. Her friends vanished. They blocked her on social media, stopped answering her calls, deleted photos they had together. Her social media following plummeted from 300,000 to less than 10,000 in a matter of days. And those who remained were only there to curse her, to criticize her, to remind her with every post of what she had done. Olivia tried to defend herself. She posted a tearful video, her face swollen, no makeup, apologizing, saying she was going through a difficult time, that she had personal problems, that she wasn't that person, that she was deeply sorry. But no one believed her, because the images didn't lie. They showed exactly who she was when she thought no one was watching. They showed the mask falling. They showed the raw, ugly truth. The comments were devastating. "Monster. How can anyone be so cruel to an elderly person? You deserve everything that's happening to you. I hope you never find peace." And Olivia read every single one, feeling the weight of the words, the rejection, the hatred, the contempt. It was as if the entire world had turned against her. And it had. Without money, without contracts, without support, Olivia had to sell the condo she had bought with money from endorsements and brand collaborations. She had to sell her designer clothes, her expensive handbags, her jewelry. It was all gone. And even then, it wasn't enough to cover the debts she had accumulated maintaining that impossible lifestyle. She had to move back in with her parents, who were ashamed, disappointed, and hurt. Her mother cried every day, asking where she had gone wrong in raising her. Her father barely spoke to her, just looked at her with a deep sadness in his eyes. They had raised a daughter and now had a stranger in their house, a stranger who had turned into something they didn't recognize. Olivia tried to find a job. She sent her resume to dozens of companies, but no one would hire her. A quick Google search was all it took to see who she was, what she had done. Her name was tarnished, permanently. She only managed to find a job in a small coffee shop, far from the city centre, where the owner didn't have internet access and didn't know her story. She earned minimum wage, served coffee and pastries and cleaned tables. It was so far from the life she once had that it felt like a nightmare. At night, alone in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by faded posters and memories of a person who no longer existed, Olivia would stare at the ceiling and wonder how she had reached this point, how she had let ambition, vanity, and an obsessive desire for perfection and status turn her into that horrible person. How she had been capable of treating an elderly woman who only wanted love and respect with such cruelty. She was sorry, truly sorry, with an ache in her chest that stole her sleep and tormented her in every quiet moment. But regret didn't erase what she had done. It didn't restore Helen's dignity. It didn't fix anything. It was just a weight she would have to carry for the rest of her life. And the worst part was that the image of Helen falling to the floor, scared, hurt, fragile, wouldn't leave her mind. That image haunted her day and night, in her dreams and nightmares. It was like a life sentence, a constant reminder that she had crossed a line she should never have crossed, that she had become the very type of person she used to criticize on social media. While Olivia sank into her own misery and the inevitable consequences of her actions, Helen blossomed. The farmhouse was finally finished. Gabriel had done an incredible, truly dedicated job. He kept the original structure of the house his father had built decades ago, preserving the exposed brick walls, the wooden ceiling beams, and the wide plank floors. But he renovated everything with care and attention. He installed accessible bathrooms with grab, bars and non-slip floors, a spacious and airy ground-floor bedroom for his mother, with a direct view of the garden, a large, well-equipped kitchen that still had its wood-burning stove, and a huge porch with rocking chairs and a hammock, perfect for watching the sunset. In the yard he rebuilt the chicken coop that had been there when he was a child, only now it was larger and more comfortable for the chickens' well-being. He planted fruit trees, mango, guava, jaboticaba, cherry. He created a huge, spacious vegetable garden where Helen could plant anything she wanted. Tomatoes, lettuce, arugula, chives, cilantro, peppers. He installed an automatic irrigation system, but kept the traditional hose because he knew his mother liked to water the plants herself, to feel the earth, to talk to her plants. Moving day was emotional. Gabriel hired a truck, loaded the few things they wanted to take from the mansion, mostly items with sentimental value and some clothes. The rest was donated to charity, and they left New York on a Saturday morning, with a blue sky and a shining sun. During the drive, Helen looked out the window, watching the city recede, the buildings shrink, the green expand, feeling the air become lighter, cleaner, fresher, and with every mile they moved away from the city, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders, as if she were literally leaving the suffering behind and heading toward a new life. Gabriel drove in silence, but every now and then he would glance over and see his mother smiling, breathing deeply, looking younger, more alive. And he felt he was doing the right thing, that this was the path, the only possible path to true healing. When they finally arrived at the farm, when she saw the white-painted wooden gate, the stone path leading to the house, the flower garden Gabriel had personally tended to in recent weeks, the birds singing in the trees, the smell of damp earth mixed with the perfume of flowers, she cried. She cried with pure, genuine, overwhelming happiness. "This is it, Mom. This is where we're going to live from now on, together, without fear, without absurd rules, without anyone to judge us, just the two of us, and the simple life we always had and should never have left." Helen got out of the car, stepped onto the soil of the yard, and felt like she was stepping home. Truly home. She entered the house slowly, touching the walls, feeling the texture of the brick, running her hand over the wooden beams, smelling the new paint, mixed with the scent of damp earth from outside. It was like coming home after a long, exhausting and painful journey. It was like finding herself again after having been lost. Gabriel showed her every room, every detail he had planned with her in mind. The bedroom with the large, comfortable bed, the spacious closet, the huge window overlooking the garden, the kitchen with its new cabinets but the wood-burning stove she loved, the porch with the rocking chairs and the hammock. And Helen went from room to room, moved, grateful, feeling that she finally had a place that was truly hers. In the following months, their lives found a new rhythm, calm, happy, healthy. Helen woke up early, as she always had, but now without anxiety, without fear. She would open her bedroom window and breathe in the fresh morning air. She would go to the chicken coop, feed the chickens, talk to them, and collect the fresh eggs. Then she would water the garden, check on her growing plants, pull a weed here and there, and pick fresh vegetables for lunch. Gabriel worked from home in an office he had set up in one of the upstairs rooms. He met with clients via video call, designed projects on his computer, and managed construction sites remotely. But he was always available for his mother, always present. When he heard her in the kitchen, he would come down to help. When he noticed she was tired, he would take over her tasks. They had lunch together every day at the large wooden table in the kitchen, talking, laughing, planning the rest of their day. In the afternoons, he often helped her in the kitchen, learning the recipes she had been making for decades, listening to the stories she told about her childhood, about his father, about the hard times that were still full of love. And Helen blossomed in these conversations. She felt that her story mattered, that her memories had value, that she wasn't just a forgotten old woman, but a woman with experience and wisdom to share. And Helen started making her sweets again: creamy, rich caramel sauce, coconut candy, guava paste, marmalade, peach preserves, banana sweets. All made by hand, with natural ingredients, no preservatives, unhurriedly, with love and dedication. Gabriel tasted everything, gave his opinions, and helped package them in glass jars with handmade labels. One afternoon, while tasting a particularly well-made caramel sauce, Gabriel had an idea. "Mom, have you ever thought about selling these? They're better than anything I've ever eaten in an expensive New York bakery." Helen laughed, a little embarrassed. "Oh, Gabriel, who would want to buy sweets from an old country woman?" "A lot of people, Mom, a lot of people. Let me handle this." And Gabriel handled it. He created a simple but beautiful website with professional photos of the sweets, a section telling Helen's story, the recipe passed down through generations, the artisanal process, the care in every jar. He set fair prices, configured an online ordering system, and arranged for shipping. And he promoted it on social media through his own network of contacts and in foodie groups. The website was a hit. People bought not just for the quality, which was undeniable, but for the story. The story of Helen, the woman who had faced so much, who had survived abuse, who had started her life over and was now doing what she loved. The story touched people. It generated connection, empathy, admiration. The orders started coming in. A few at first, then dozens, then hundreds. Helen could hardly believe it. She spent her days in the kitchen, happy, producing her sweets, packaging them with care and including handwritten notes thanking each customer. And when customers received their products and left emotional comments, sincere praise, she would cry with happiness. Gabriel saw that the demand was growing too much for his mother to handle alone, so he hired 2 women from the area, Mary and Joan, 2 experienced, honest, hard-working women. They came to the farm 3 times a week and helped with production, always under Helen's strict but affectionate supervision. She taught them every detail, every secret, ensuring that every sweet was perfect. And the 3 of them became friends, sharing stories, laughter, and companionship. The business grew so much that Gabriel rented a space in the neighboring town and set up a physical store. It was small, cozy, decorated with old photos of the farm, with a display case full of Helen's sweets. The shop was named Grandma Helen's Sweets and became an instant success. People went there not just to buy but to chat, to hear the stories, to feel the warmth of things made with love. And for the first time in a long time, Helen felt fulfilled. She felt her life had purpose, that she wasn't just an old woman waiting for the days to pass. She was a strong, hard-working, capable woman who had turned suffering into sweetness, pain into a product, tears into success. She was a senior entrepreneur, inspiring others to start over, to not give up, to believe that it's never too late to be happy. The months turned into years. Life on the farm remained peaceful but productive. Gabriel was happier than he had ever been in New York. He discovered he didn't need luxury to be happy. He needed purpose, connection, roots. And he had all of that there, on that piece of land where he had grown up, where his mother had shed sweat and tears to raise him. It was on a Saturday afternoon, at a craft fair in the town square, that Gabriel met Marina. She was a teacher at the local elementary school, a 35-year-old woman with brown hair tied back in a ponytail, delicate glasses, and a shy but genuine smile. She was at the booth next to Grandma Helen's Sweets, selling used books to raise money for the school library. Gabriel went to buy some books for his mother, who loved to read, and ended up talking to Marina. She was simple, true, unpretentious. She spoke with passion about education, about her students, about the importance of sparking a love for reading in children. Gabriel was enchanted, not by her beauty, though she was beautiful, but by her essence, by the light she radiated, by the purity of her heart. They started seeing each other. Walks in the park, coffee at the bakery, long conversations about life, dreams, values. Marina met Helen, and the two connected immediately. Marina treated the older woman with genuine respect, with affection, with a true interest in her stories. And Helen saw in her what she had not seen in Olivia, a pure heart. Their relationship blossomed naturally, without rush, without pressure, without artificiality. Just two hearts, finding each other at the right time in the right place. Gabriel was in love, but in a different way. It wasn't the toxic, superficial passion he had felt for Olivia. It was a calm, deep love based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine admiration. A year later, Gabriel asked Marina to marry him. It wasn't a grand, planned proposal. It was on a Sunday afternoon, on the porch of the farmhouse, with Helen sitting in her rocking chair beside them, the chickens pecking in the yard, the smell of cake wafting from the kitchen. Gabriel knelt, took Marina's hand, and asked if she wanted to build a life with him. Marina cried and said yes, and Helen cried along with them, happy to see her son, truly loved by someone who deserved him. The wedding was the exact opposite of what it would have been with Olivia. It was simple, intimate, real. It took place on the farmhouse porch, decorated with flowers from the garden, with only about 30 guests, close family and friends. Helen was the matron of honor, wearing a light blue dress that Marina had chosen especially for her. Gabriel was emotional, Marina was radiant, Helen was fulfilled. The ceremony was conducted by a local priest who had known the family for years. The words were simple, but profound. About true love, about companionship, about building a life based on values, not appearances. When the priest said, "You may now kiss the bride," Gabriel gave a long, emotional kiss full of promise, and everyone applauded, sincerely happy. The reception was right there on the porch, with homemade food cooked by local women. Live music from a local guitarist, dancing, laughter, genuine joy. Helen danced with her son, moved, saying it was one of the happiest days of her life. And Gabriel held her tightly, thankful that she had survived, that she was there, that he could share this moment with her. Marina moved to the farm. She and Helen became more than mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. They became friends, companions, confidants. Marina helped in the kitchen, learned the recipes, listened to the stories, and cared for the home. And Helen taught her, guided her, and welcomed her as the daughter she never had. And then came the grandchildren. First a girl, Laura, 2 years after the wedding. Helen was in the hospital waiting room when Gabriel came out with the baby in his arms. He placed his little granddaughter in his mother's lap, and Helen looked at that tiny face, at those curious eyes, and felt her heart explode with love. It was life renewed, it was hope, it was the future. 2 years later, a boy, Peter, was born, and Helen was completely fulfilled. She spent her days caring for her grandchildren, teaching them recipes when they got older, telling them stories, planting with them in the garden. Laura loved helping her grandmother make coconut candy. Peter liked to collect eggs from the chickens every morning. and Helen felt her life had gained an even greater meaning. It wasn't just about her. It was about legacy, about passing on everything she had learned, about raising good, generous human beings connected to the land. Gabriel saw his mother like this, surrounded by grandchildren, happy, whole, wise, and felt he had fulfilled his mission. He had rescued her dignity. He had returned the joy that Olivia had tried to steal. And more than that, he had learned life's greatest lesson, that true value lies in simple things, in roots, in a love that doesn't demand, that doesn't require, that only gives. But Gabriel wanted to do more. He wanted to transform his mother's suffering into something bigger, something that could help others. So he decided to create a residential home for vulnerable seniors. He bought a plot of land next to the farm and built a spacious, comfortable, welcoming facility. It had 10 individual rooms, a common area with sofas and a TV, a library, a craft room, a community kitchen, a garden where residents could plant, and a huge porch with rocking chairs. The center was named the Helen Miller House, and she was its volunteer coordinator. She visited the residents every day, talked with them, taught them recipes, organized craft workshops, and made sure every person there felt respected, valued, and loved. And every senior who arrived there found not just shelter, but a family, the love that Helen had in abundance to give. Gabriel hired a team of professional caregivers, but the heart of the home was Helen. She was the one who knew every story, every pain, every need. She was the one who hugged when someone cried, who laughed along when someone told a joke, who prayed with those who asked. She transformed her suffering into empathy, her pain into compassion, her story into a mission. The home became a benchmark in the region. Social workers sent cases, families sought placement for relatives they couldn't care for, and homeless seniors found a home there. And Helen cared for them all with the same dedication, the same love, as if they were her own family. One afternoon, Helen was sitting in a rocking chair on the home's porch, knitting a sweater for her grandson Peter. One of the residents, Frances, an 82-year-old woman who had been abandoned by her children, sat down next to her. "Helen, I wanted to thank you." "Thank me for what, my dear?" "For making me feel like a person again. I had lost that. I had lost the will to live. But here, with you, with everyone, I've started to feel like my life is worth something again." Helen stopped knitting and took Frances's hand. "Your life has always been worthwhile, dear. Always. What happened to you wasn't your fault. But now you're here, you're safe, you're loved, and everything is going to be okay." Frances cried, and Helen hugged her, feeling her pain as if it were her own. Because she knew that pain. She had lived that pain. And now she used that experience to heal others. The years continued to pass. Helen aged with grace, with dignity, with joy. Her hair turned completely white, her wrinkles deepened, her body slowed down, but her spirit remained strong. She stayed active, involved with the home, with her sweets, with her grandchildren, with life. Marina had another child, a girl they named Helen in honor of her grandmother, and when Helen held her little namesake in her arms and heard she carried her name, she cried with emotion. She felt her life had come full circle, from suffering to redemption, from pain to joy, from loneliness to abundant love. Gabriel, now in his late 40s, had found his place in the world. He divided his time between architectural projects he did remotely, managing the sweets business which had grown significantly, and the home, which had become his passion. But the most important thing was to be present. Present for his mother, for his wife, for his children. Truly present, not just physically, but emotionally. Once, on a Sunday afternoon, the whole family was gathered at the farm. Gabriel and Marina, their 3 children, some friends from town, and residents from the home who had come for lunch. The table was laden with homemade food, with Helen's sweets. For dessert, there was laughter, conversation, music, life. Gabriel looked around, saw his mother smiling among her grandchildren, saw Marina serving people with care, saw the genuine joy on everyone's faces, and he felt a deep gratitude for having woken up in time, for having discovered the truth, for having had the courage to break away from a life that seemed perfect but was rotten inside. for having returned to his roots, to the essential, to what truly matters. Livia, in all those years, never fully recovered. She found a better job after a few years, in an accounting office, far from the spotlight, far from the life she once had. She married an ordinary man, an IT technician, who didn't know her story because he didn't use social media. She had an ordinary, simple, anonymous life. But every day, she carried the weight of what she had done. She wasn't a bad person at her core. She had lost her way, had let vanity, unchecked ambition, and an obsession with status transform her into someone she no longer recognized. And she paid the price. A high, just necessary price. A price that taught her too late that appearances are worthless if the soul is empty. Once, years later, Olivia was passing through the Port Authority bus terminal when she saw a news report on TV about the Helen Miller house. The report showed the elderly woman, now older but radiant, caring for the residents, telling her story of overcoming adversity. Olivia stopped and watched, feeling her chest tighten, tears welling up. She saw the peace on Helen's face, the joy, the fulfillment. And she saw everything that she, Olivia, had tried to destroy but couldn't. In that moment, Olivia thought about going to the farm, apologizing in person, seeking some kind of redemption. But she knew she didn't have that right. She knew some things couldn't be fixed with words. She knew the best thing she could do was leave Helen in peace and try, in the silence of her ordinary life, to be a better person. Not to be forgiven because she didn't deserve forgiveness, but to honor the lesson Helen had taught her in the harshest way possible. Helen, generous and wise as she had always been, never spoke ill of Olivia. When asked about what had happened, about the woman who had abused her, she would simply say with serenity, "We all have our own crosses to bear. I've carried mine and survived. Now I just want to live in peace, spread love, and care for those who need it. The past is the past. What matters is the present, what we do now with the time we have left." And she lived exactly that way, with dignity, with joy, with generosity, with love. She turned her pain into purpose. She turned her suffering into a mission. She turned her story into an inspiration for thousands of people who learned of her journey through news, reports, the home's social media, and the word of mouth that spread through the region and beyond. One afternoon, at 86 years old, Helen was sitting in her rocking chair on the porch, knitting a sweater for the great-grandchild Marina was expecting. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold, orange and pink. Gabriel approached, sat on the porch step at her feet, just as he did when he was a child. "Mum, are you happy?" She stopped knitting, looked at her son, then at the warmly colored horizon. She was silent for a moment, breathing deeply, smelling the earth, feeling the gentle breeze on her face, the warmth of the setting sun. "I am, Gabriel. I'm very happy. Some days I stop and think about everything I've been through, everything we've lived, the hard times, the moments of despair, the moments I thought I couldn't go on, and I realize that everything had a purpose, even the suffering, because it brought me here, to this peace, to this love, to this life full of meaning. And I'm grateful, grateful to be alive, grateful to have you, grateful to have Marina, grateful for these wonderful grandchildren and great-grandchild, grateful for this simple but meaningful life, grateful that I had the strength to survive and the luck to have a son who came back to me when I needed him most." Gabriel held her hand, squeezing it affectionately. "You're the strongest woman I know, Mom, the wisest, the most generous. Everything good in me I learned from you." "I'm not strong, son. I'm just stubborn. Stubborn enough not to give up, to believe that better days would come. And they did. Oh, how they did. Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life, that after so much suffering, God gave me this second chance, this beautiful life full of love, full of purpose." They sat there in silence, watching the day end and the night slowly arrive. The sky darkened, the first stars appeared, the crickets began to sing. And in that silence there was peace, there was healing, there was love, there was everything that truly matters. Marina came out with the children, Laura now 10, Peter 8, and little Helen 5. They ran to their grandmother's lap, telling her about their day's adventures, showing her the drawings they had made. Helen hugged each one, kissed. Each little head smelled the scent of childhood they exuded, and her heart overflowed with gratitude. When night had finally fallen completely, Gabriel helped his mother inside. He made her a cup of chamomile tea, just the way she liked it, with a little bit of honey. He covered her with the patchwork quilt that had survived everything, the quilt she had sewn when he was born, and that had endured for decades, carrying memories, love, history. Helen held her grandmother's rosary, the one that had been stolen and returned, the one that represented faith, resilience, hope. She prayed softly, giving thanks for another day, for another chance to live, to love, to make a difference. And she slept peacefully, more peacefully than she had ever slept in that mansion in New York. Peaceful because she was home, in her true home, surrounded by true love, by a true family, by a true life. The years continued to pass. Helen remained active until she was 90, when her body finally began to ask for more rest. She reduced her activities at the home, but continued to visit when she could. She continued to make her sweets when she had the energy. She continued to be the heart of that family, that place, that community, and when her time came years later, it was in the most peaceful way possible. On a Sunday afternoon, surrounded by her entire family, Gabriel by her side, holding her hand, Marina kissing her forehead, her grandchildren and great-grandchildren around her, in respectful silence but without despair, because she had lived fully, loved deeply, and made a difference. She closed her eyes for the last time, with a smile on her lips, a smile of someone who had truly lived, who had survived the worst and found the best, who had transformed pain into love, suffering into a mission, tears into joy. And when she departed, she left an immense legacy, not of money, not of material possessions, but of love, of example, of inspiration. The home continued to operate, now coordinated by Marina with Gabriel managing it. The sweets continued to be made, the recipe now passed down to the grandchildren who had learned from her. The story continued to be told, inspiring others not to give up, to start over, to believe that there is always hope. Gabriel, on the day of the funeral, gave a simple but profound eulogy. My mother taught me everything that truly matters in life. She taught me that true value isn't in appearances, not in what we have, but in who we are. She taught me that family is about presence, about genuine love, about being there in the difficult times. She taught me that it's never too late to start over, to fix mistakes, to do what's right. And above all, she taught me that a person's dignity cannot be stolen. It can be attacked, it can be tested, but if a person is strong enough, they resist, they survive, and they win. My mother won, and I will be eternally grateful to have had the chance to be by her side in that victory. This is a story about the value of a quiet life, about the dignity that withstands time, oppression, and contempt. A brutal yet necessary warning about how the disregard for the elderly is an open wound in our society. But it is also a story of redemption, of justice, and of reconnecting with one's roots. Because sometimes to find what truly matters, you have to lose everything, including your illusions, and sometimes suffering leads us exactly where we need to be, home, to love, to ourselves.